Okay, I would like to call tonight's reorg meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, July 5th. It is 6:12. The first order of business on tonight's reorg meeting is the oath of new board members, which Rebecca will administer to Mr. Caveira.
Repeat after me.
Let's see if you can pull it off.
I do. We can do this. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York.
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office
I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office
of member of Board of Education
of member of the Board of Education
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Done. Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Campbell is detained, so we will swear him in upon his arrival. At this time, I'd like to request a motion for executive session.
So moved.
Seconded. Okay, and we are going into executive session in accordance with Public Officers Law, Article 7, Section 105, and District Policy 1525 to discuss matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person. So at this time, the board will enter executive session.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
We are
We are now in executive session.
Today is Tuesday, July 5th, and we are swearing Gary Campbell in for his full term as a Board of Education member starting now.
Thank you.
Okay, repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of member of Board of Education
of the office of member of the Board of Education
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
You're good.
All right.
Okay, you are so
Ready to go? Okay, we are now back from executive session. Can I get a motion to come back to regular session? So moved.
Second.
Moved by Amanda, second by Tim, I think. Okay, we are now back in regular session. Just for everyone that's here, the first meeting tonight is the reorg meeting. It should be pretty quick, but it's an annual meeting where you'll hear some of the stuff we go through, and then we will close the meeting and go to our regular board meeting. So just so you guys understand, the public comment is during the regular meeting, not during the reorg meeting. Just so I didn't want there to be any confusion. All right, do we have a quorum? It looks like we do. We've got 1, 2, 3. We've got all 7 of us here tonight. So the first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Caveira, would you like to lead us?
Sure.
Flags on the back. Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first order of business on the agenda, item A, is election of a board president. Would anybody nominate Danielle? Thanks.
I will nominate Danielle.
So,
Second.
second. Okay, this is awkward. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
This time,
At this time, Rebecca,
ask Rebecca York to read
come on over.
Danielle the oath of office as president of the Board of Education.
Are you ready?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of President of the Board of Education
of the office of the President of Board of Education
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability. Thank you. Thanks. Okay, next on the agenda would be the nomination for a vice president for the board. Anybody like to make that nomination?
I nominate Carrie Brogan.
Okay, I will second that. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Okay, Ms. Brogan, congratulations. Rebecca, can you give the oath to Carrie?
I sure can. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of the Vice President of Board of Education
of the office of Vice President of Board of Education
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my abilities.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is establishment of the board committees for the 2022-23 school year. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Skaneateles Central School District authorizes the establishment of the following standing committees: Audit, Budget, and Finance, which is a required committee by the state, a Policy Committee, Strategic Planning Committee, and the Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment Committee. Can I get a motion on that?
Second.
Motion by Amanda, second by Dan. And Rebecca/Eric, do you want us to decide what committees we'd like to be on tonight, or do you want to take that discussion offline?
You guys can deliberate, you guys can consider that, and by the next meeting, we can establish. I think the only committee that may meet is ABF, so we
Yeah, I
have.
was gonna chime in. We lost Tom, as I discussed last time, at our last board meeting, for you guys to kind of internally talk if that happened or not, but we have Danielle and Gary so far, and we're willing for a third, if you wanna do that now or not, but there will be a meeting before the August 16th meeting, so.
Which, Gary, by the way, that was code for yours staying on the ABS.
Oh, yeah.
Just so we're clear, you can go holding delivery all you want, but you're already assigned to that one, so. Is there anybody else that really wants to get on ABF?
There doesn't have to be now.
You can think about it and then just email Connor, but we meet about monthly.
Monthly traction, and in the summer it's a little stagnant just because of schedules and not much going on.
One of the other things to consider, and maybe it's a good reason to not act now, is that in our third and final strategic planning meeting today, one of the things that surfaced as a community ask was to establish some other committee type structures. So we're going to take that work and complete it next week and come back to the board with a recommendation for any other committees. And those things may be more your speed. I know, for example, Kristen Moses started the Mental Wellness Roundtable, which has been a standing committee this year. People may or may not be interested in certain things just based on their own experience and skills. So we'll come back to you at the next board meeting with a recommendation
Okay.
and a full menu of what we're intending to offer.
So for tonight, let's just vote on these committees, these 4 committees, and then if we add others, we can do it at a subsequent meeting. And if there's any board member that really gets their socks off on audit, budget, finance, just shoot Connor a message and you can join that committee as well with Gary and I. It's a lot of fun. Can we take a vote on that? Everyone in favor of these 4 committees, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, next, item number F. Board of Education approves the 2023 membership for board members to COSUB, NISUB, and CNYSBA, which are various school board associations that we belong to.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. The next one is the annual NYSBA conference. Be it resolved, the Board of Education will determine attendance for the 2023 annual NYSBA convention, which this year is actually at the Marriott downtown Syracuse on October 27th through the 29th. So we will decide who wants to go to that at a later date, but can we get a motion for this?
Second.
Amanda, then Tim. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes.
I would encourage board attendance.
It's pretty
The
good.
NISBA conference is typically great. It's also typically in New York City, which is hard to get to and very expensive. So this one's right in our own backyard, and I'll be attending with anybody who will join me. So please let me know.
Okay, the next group of things, I'm going to give you the highlight reel. You're going to group items H through O together, which are various appointments that people in the district get appointed for so that they can conduct district business. So we've got that. The next item I is different designations, which is outlining the newspapers and the banks that we use to share information, return check fees, travel rate of reimbursement, and approval of a professional services agreement for school physicians, auditors, district council, financial advisors, and insurance. The next one after that, item M is authorizations and certification, which allows Eric to oversee the finances of the district. It allows people like Elaine McLaughlin to be our asbestos designee. There is a Medicaid compliance officer. All of this is in board docs. If you guys would like to read it and see every person in the district that is assigned to a specific job, it is all laid out. Also included is temporary appointments, and it authors Eric to fill administrative, instructional, and non-instructional vacancies pending board approval. It allows the district to approve substitute employees and tutors. And let's see, that was it. That was O. So all those can I get a motion to approve all of those together?
So moved.
Second by Tanya. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, all those pass.
Just for the audience too, this happens in this meeting every time in July. You saw the election of board officers, the appointments of all these things. It's most of it's boilerplate, standard operating procedure things that allow us to do business in the coming years. So.
Item P on the agenda is readopting all of the board policies that were in effect in the 21-22 school year. In accordance with Education Law Section 1709 and 2503, the Board of Education hereby resolves to readopt all board policies that were in effect during the 21-22 school year, including the attendance policy and the code of ethics. Can I get a motion on that?
So moved.
Second.
First by Carrie, second by Amanda. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Item Q, readopting the code of conduct for 22-23. In accordance with Education Law 1709 and 2503, the Board of Education hereby resolves to readopt the code of conduct for the 22-23 school year. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Tim? Second by Amanda. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. R through U, I am going to group together. Item R is a partial payment of school taxes. Board of Education authorizes the district tax collector to collect any partial payments with appropriate penalties being assessed as allowed by law and regulation. Item S is Health and Safety Committee. Be it resolved, the Board of Education approves members to the Health and Safety Committee for the 22-23 year. Do you need me to read off all the names for this?
No.
This list is also posted online. It's the full list of the people in the Health and Safety Committee.
I have just a minor technicality.
Yeah.
Some of the names for the Health and Safety Committee haven't been appointed yet.
Oh, as far as the.
Okay.
So we
Yes.
can't, we have to
Yeah.
save
Yeah.
us and come back to it.
Yep, good call.
You want to take this one out of here then?
Just take S separate.
Okay, so we're just gonna do the partial payment of school taxes, and then, we're gonna skip ahead to item T, and item S will be on hold. Special education dignity and compliance responsibilities. The Board of Education hereby establishes the list of committees and appoints the following individuals to student-related services. We are gonna have the same problem on this one under you, just so you know. Related to special education and the management of the Dignity Act requirements and the Title IX regulations and District Health Committee organization
for the 22-23 school year, and the administration hereby directed to execute appointments accordingly.
If the board is okay with doing it pending board approval of those other people, you can move forward that way.
Because S and U both have an individual in there that
Yes.
is up next for board approval.
Yeah,
So if that is, let's do it that way.
that doesn't happen until,
Which happens in the next
Regular
meeting.
board meeting.
Is that going to be a problem?
I think it's just with the addition of pending board approval.
So we are going to include back in number S, which was the approving the members of the Health and Safety Committee for 22-23, and item U, School Dignity Act coordinators. Be it resolved, the Board of Education appoints the listed individuals for school level dignity officers. Both S and U will be grouped together with those, but they are pending approval of all personnel. Can I get a motion to group those items together?
So moved.
Tim, second by Tanya. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, the next item, oath of office. The superintendent shall be administered the oath of office, the business district official, or the school business manager, and the district treasurer, and the tax collector. Please note, these oaths were taken already today when the staff was actually in the office, so the oaths were administered, we are just accepting them tonight. So can I get a motion to accept those oath of office of those individuals?
So moved.
Amanda, second by Tanya. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes as well. The next one is conflict of interest. This applies to comply with the recommendation of the district auditors, and because it's good practice, the district is directed by the board to sign a conflict of interest statement to ensure that the district is practicing acceptable methods of protecting itself from potential self-dealing transactions. This applies to board members, the superintendent, the director of personnel and operations, the school business manager, the deputy, and the deputy treasurer, which the board members, you all signed that when we came in tonight earlier. Can I get a motion for that item?
So moved.
Second.
Amanda, second by Tim. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the next couple items are going to be lumped together. It is item X, school lunches. It is the recommendation by the superintendent that the Board of Education hereby establishes the following school lunch prices for 22-23 school year. Breakfast is $2, 6 through 12. Elementary lunch is $3.25. Middle school, high school lunch is $3.25. The next item is standard workday. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Skaneateles Central School District hereby establishes the standard workday for its employees and will report workdays to the New York State and local employers retirement system based on the timekeeping system of the state records of activities maintained and submitted by the members of the clerk in this body. And in the packet that the board gets, we have a whole list of every single position and the amount of what is considered their standard workday. I will not do those all for you. And item Z is a rate for the use of facilities, which is at $30 an hour per person. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education for the Skaneateles Central School District establishes the facilities use rate for the 22-23 school year as $30 an hour per person. Can I get a motion for those items?
So moved.
Second.
Amanda first, Carrie second.
Can we just take a moment while it's on the table to just publicly, maybe Eric, you can explain the school lunch prices coming back into play for a lot of our families that really benefited.
Yeah, so Connor, feel free to jump in here too, but some of the federally funded subsidies are expiring.
Yep, so this was not a decision by the district. It was not an upcoming state budget because wells have dried up, like we've been talking about for federal funding for things that we've been implementing throughout the district. Just to note that these prices have remained flat since when they were charging, so there's no increase. But we are not getting the reimbursement that we've seen for the past 2 years.
And families that do need help with lunch, they can still go through the process that existed prior to the free lunches, which was just apply for the lunch program.
Correct.
And it's-
So
The carte lunch federal funding has expired, but the school lunch subsidies for economically challenged families still exist.
Yeah.
And there is some talk, it came out in our NISBA newsletter this week. They're trying to extend it at least through the summer, I saw, so there's, I guess you'll just keep us updated if there happens to be a change of status at a
Yeah.
statewide level or something to re-implement that.
That's more focused on districts who have their own summer school programs.
Okay.
So while they still have kids in district, they're still providing those lunches, but come September, they will no longer be supporting any of those universities they have. Pre-introduced applications will be available August 1st. So those will be pushed out through our school lunch director, starting then through Parent Square, through email, and can be available on the website.
I'm still using my school bus, excuse me.
Yes.
Yes.
Any further questions? No? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, last two of my speed reading. Bid participation. Be it resolved, the Skaneateles School District Board of Education authorizes participation and purchases from co-op bids with the Cayuga Onondaga BOCES, Onondaga Cortland Madison BOCES, and all other New York State BOCES cooperative purchasing groups in compliance with all regulations governing said purchases for the 22-23 school year. I'm going to group that together with impartial hearing officers, which is the last item, BB. Be it resolved, the district will be responsible for appointing and compensating the IHO for pre-hearing, hearing, and post-hearing activities at an amount not to exceed the maximum hourly rate approved by the Commissioner of Education. At the completion of the impartial due hearing process, the IHO shall submit an itemized bill of hourly charges to the district. The district will be responsible for compensating the impartial hearing officer, IHO, for pre-hearing, hearing, and post-hearing activities at an amount not to exceed the maximum hourly rate approved by the Commissioner of Education, which is currently $100 an hour, and for necessary lodging, airfare, train fare, automobile, and mileage as approved by the district. At the completion of the impartial due hearings process, the IHO shall submit an itemized bill to the district detailing the hourly charges authorized by disbursements, receipts, or for disbursement. The items of any rescheduling or cancellation fee must be agreed upon by the district and the IHO upon appointment. The Board of Education hereby designates the Board of Education president or vice president to appoint independent hearing officers for independent hearings as needed from July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2023, as per policy 7670. Can I get a motion on those two items?
So moved.
Carrie. Second by Dan. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, we are now going to adjourn this meeting. Can I get a motion to adjourn our reorg meeting?
So
Okay, first by Tanya, second by Amanda. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? I don't think so. Okay, we have adjourned the reorg meeting. Ready, Tanya? Okay, so we will skip that. Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, July 5th. It's 7:22 for the regular Skaneateles Central School District Board of Education meeting. Because we just finished our reorg meeting, we already did the pledge and the quorum count, so we will move to item C, which is the opportunity for public comment. The board encourages public expression at board meetings. Speakers may comment on matters related to any agenda item. The board will not permit in public session discussion involving individual district personnel or students. Persons wishing to discuss matters involving district personnel or its students should present their comments and concerns to the superintendent during regular business hours. All speakers are to conduct themselves in a civil manner. Personal attacks, obscene language, libelous statements, threats of violence, statements advocating racial, religious, or other forms of prejudice will not be tolerated. Total allocated time allowed for public comment is 30 minutes with the option to extend by board vote. There is a 3 to 5 minute allotment per speaker, and we offer a comment period at the beginning of regular meetings and a second period at the end, but generally we don't receive comments at special board meetings. We do ask speakers to identify themselves by name and address prior to speaking. And just as a housekeeping matter, public comment is for you to share any comments or thoughts that you have, but the board does not engage in a back and forth discussion during a public comment period. So if we have anyone that would like to step up for public comment, the floor is all yours. Just come on up to the podium.
Highbridge Road for 43 years. We had 2 children that graduated from Skaneateles, and at the present time I have 5 grandchildren attending the school, from one about to become a senior, one about to go to 3rd grade. So I have a concern that I'm sure the board members have probably heard these concerns, but I'd like to kind of lump them together and then add a comment to make. And it's after the start of the school year last year, the website had that space down on the lower right-hand corner where you click on it, where the students could get colored condoms and lube and hookups with men 12 to 29 in Syracuse. That went away finally. The gender identity counseling in Syracuse, that from my understanding, some of it was without parents' knowledge or parents were informed. Supposedly that has gone away. That's what I was told. And recently we had Gay Pride Day. I don't have any bias against anybody's sexual, I don't want to say sexual ideas or what their norms are, but I don't think it should be celebrated. And I was also told that the students were busily tie-dyeing shirts for Gay Pride Day. After these students have lost almost 2 years of on and off COVID interruptions with their teaching, sure they had Zoom, but our experience with Zoom and our younger 2 grandchildren, the Zoom was very ineffective as far as their learning in very short period of time that they're on Zoom. And when they were, you've probably all heard the stories about the classes running around and jumping up and down, some of them were in bed. It is hard. It's hard for the teachers, it's hard for the students. I think that perhaps some of this time would be better off if maybe we had some life experience teaching, such as my kids are getting older now, life skills, employment applications. Everybody texts, nobody writes anymore, and these kids don't know how to fill out employment applications, not properly, not to be, if you fill out one better than the next guy, your chances of getting a job are far more in hand. Another problem is, if you get a job, you have to put your money in the bank, and these kids don't know how to make out a deposit slip, let alone set up an account or anything like this. And then, as they get older, I had a conversation with my sister-in-law who teaches in Rochester, and she's part of the older group. She said that these kids are not very knowledgeable of how to fill out college applications for enrollment in college. These things are things that, need to be addressed somewhat. I understand education is very important, but general basic knowledge and some life skills also go a long ways in this day. And the only other thing I can say is, with this Zoom and these interruptions, is now I understand that the Regents exams for the older kids, the passing grade has now been lowered to 50%, which tells me, I hope that our students are doing better than average, but you don't know. And I asked my older grandson if he got his mark and he said no. So I don't know where they stand or how they stand. It's not a good situation. But look at these three things, and it just tells me that there's a little bit too much indoctrination in the system, and I'm not blaming that on anybody, one way or the other, but I think that maybe the system should be, put forth for a little more education. Instead of indoctrination, we need education. Thank you very much for your time and appreciate it. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. All right, next item on the agenda is item D, approval of the minutes from the June 7th board meeting. Resolved, Board of Education approves the June 7th, 2022 BOE meeting minutes that were attached to our board packets. Can I get a motion on that?
So moved.
Amanda, can I get a second? Second by Carrie. Any discussion? Any questions? Okay. All those in favor of approving the board meeting minutes from the June 7th meeting? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Up next, Eric, I'll hand it over to you for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Danielle. Congratulations to Danielle and Carrie for our new board leadership positions. Just want to start by saying a huge congratulations to the class of 2022. Our commencement ceremony was incredible. We got incredible weather, snuck in just under the rain and thunderstorms that were forecasted, but the sun was shining, kids jumped in the lake, and it was an enormous success. It's a really unique and special tradition that we have in the school district here, and to see it every year is it's an amazing thing to see. Thank you to our board members that were able to make it, and we look forward to another successful year. Danielle had mentioned at the beginning of the public comment period, and a couple other board members had asked as well, just to reiterate the why behind the fact that the board and the superintendent don't respond to the public during public comment. A lot of times questions that are asked, we encourage to come through the chain of command. So if there's a specific question about a classroom teacher, we ask that our community members start with that person and then move their way up. Ultimately culminating with the Board of Education. At board meetings, there's a real misconception about the purpose of board meetings. Board meetings are meetings of the Board of Education held in public. It's not a public meeting. And the distinction there is that there's not a back and forth interaction between people in the audience and the board and the superintendent at those meetings. You have copious opportunities to do that, whether attending our strategic planning meetings, calling myself, Connor, our principals on the phone, scheduling an in-person meeting with us at any time. But board meetings generally are not the time where we answer those questions. A lot of questions that we get from the public require research and fact checking, so it takes some time to go do that. So before we'll answer live to those things, we ask that people just understand that that's the reason why we don't interact back and forth during those meetings. Last two things I want to mention, I'll be brief tonight. We had our third and final strategic planning meeting today. Our administrative team met between 9 and I think it was 1 by the time most of us left today to further hammer out our goals. Those will be completed and submitted to the Board of Education over the summer. We'll do a big splash for the community so everybody knows this was the culmination of the work that the community weighed in on. Our community groups, our Board of Education groups, and our administrative leadership groups that met today for the final meeting, and then once again as a team during next week, we will hammer out what those final goals are for the year and publicize those and share with the community. We're excited to do that. The last thing on my list tonight was just a thank you for the interest that was expressed in our UPK program. I have a pile of applications sitting on my desk right now that I intend to go through and tally. There'll be the vetting process and the lottery will happen today with the successful chosen individuals being informed by Friday of this week.
And just to clarify on that, so that it doesn't come out the wrong way, and I don't want to put words in your mouth. but
Sure.
I'm going to just clarify. The vetting process is simply ensuring that the children or parents that submitted the application fit the age criteria. That is and that they live in the district. We're not evaluating these students. It is
No.
just a qualification to make sure you meet.
Did you complete the application with all the required information? Are your children the appropriate age? That's it.
And are you a district resident?
Are you a district resident?
Key component.
Those will go into a randomized program so that it will select the 14 individuals that will be the first UPK class that will be housed at Waterman next year. So all of that will happen between tomorrow and Friday.
May I ask how many applications we got?
When we initially put the survey out, 34, is that including the emails and the totals?
Correct.
That's interesting. So when we put the survey out, we had, I think, 80 plus people express interest and 34 complete applications so far. Great.
And the UPK class will be at Waterman at this juncture?
Yep.
Okay.
It'll be has at one. We have a space in one.
How are kindergarten numbers looking?
Last we looked, they were significantly large and holding, but we've already crossed the threshold into a 6th section. So we're in the process of hiring and ramping up for that. We'll be ready to go in September. That is all I have for tonight.
I have just one question relates to kindergarten. We talked about it last time. I'm not expecting an answer tonight, but when will we start the process? And I hope the answer is September, as soon as all the preschools have their enrollment, of saying, okay, great, these kindergartners are in the door. It looks like the year coming behind them is going to be bigger, smaller, same size, because now if we're having 6 sections of kindergarten, that means in the 23-24 school year, we're having 6 sections of first grade possibly. I mean, it's a strong possibility, even if we make the classes a little larger, but if we pick up more kids. So at what point do we have to start having some very concerning conversations about space issues? Because I would like them to happen, at least initially at a very high level, sooner rather than later, not next May. Like, oh, wow, the next kindergarten class is really big too, and now we need like 8 extra classrooms at Waterman.
To some degree, we're prisoners to when people tell us this information.
But we're not, because we have multiple preschools in this town that we could at least do a rough survey and say
Sure.
like, hey, you guys are looking like you typically enroll 60 and you had 60 plus 40 people on the wait list, or, well, you guys are only carrying 30 preschoolers and that's a 25% reduction of what you normally have. So, I mean, just some basic numbers on that.
I think that'll give us a sense, that's one club in the bag, that'll give us a sense. The old methods of sort of a predictable curve of student population seems like everything else with COVID to be out the window, where kids have come to the district for myriad reasons. Partially because we offered in-person instruction, partially because we have a large population of people that rent vacation homes that decided to stay out of urban areas during the pandemic, and 100 other reasons. So we'll never have, a hard and fast number before literally the first day of school, because kids keep coming in. But I can tell you, historically, we've had pretty accurate numbers by June into July, and maybe we had a couple of stragglers come in. But this year, we were well above all the way. Normally, where we are in August, we were all the way above in June already. So I think it's going to be a little bit more of a challenge to predict those things. But in anticipation of that, we're already having conversations with our team to talk about what's appropriate. Class size numbers, what spaces do we have, recapturing some of those things that are being used for legitimate other purposes, and figuring out, how to maximize our space. I don't think we're at the point where we're looking at building projects to expand buildings. I think we probably need some sort of a population study to help us determine that. But it's a bumper crowd of kindergartners, that's for sure.
I was going to ask that question. So historically, there's class sizes 120 up to 140 that fit in Waterman. what happens to those spaces, or what's changed that those classes aren't available?
So some of it happened, some of what happened is that our intervention services have exploded. Kids that have different needs, reading support, math support, those occupy people and spaces. We've gotten a lot better at determining what those services are and needs them. We're using consistent tools district-wide right now. But yes, there's a lot of spaces that are being used for a lot of different things. And I think there's, you have to have fresh eyes on those things at all times to make sure that we're using it to the best of our ability. We have, at the high school complex, had more and more spaces taken up by BOCES services that we house in the district. And that's been a really great thing for some of our special education students or disabled kids within our community to stay here rather than going to a program in Port Byron where they're on a bus for 55 minutes. So there's a lot of moving parts, and depending on that population and what those needs are, there's 100 different ways to find some of those spaces. I know it wasn't too long ago people were talking about closing buildings for the opposite phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
So, like Tom Landon always said, this is a great problem to have.
Can I just reiterate for the community and myself for having listened to the board meetings before to become a member, this PK program that we have that we're drawing 14 names for,
Yes.
it's just for 1 year. It's a federally funded 1-year program. Am I correct, Connor? And if we do not get the funding next year, we will not be having the program unless we decide to make it part of our own budget.
Correct. The money is only guaranteed for the year. So
Okay.
far, it's been provided 2 years in a row. But
Right.
it's also, and I've tried to say this at every board meeting, there's an important distinction between the money that is the soundbite for a politician to say, oh, we took your $114,000 that you had in 2021 and made it $250,000 in 2022. They really didn't. The per pupil allotment is where we get our funding from. We only have room for one classroom to serve 14 children. So we don't get $250,000. We get 5,400 times 4.
Per student, right?
And we are funding the rest ourselves. It's not fully funded by federal money. The district is picking up the difference that the federal money doesn't cover.
Correct. Yep.
So now we do have some skin.
Did we have to get extra buses for the pre-K program, or are they fitting on?
We are not busing for pre-K because of the DOT transportation needs that occur with students of a certain age.
Oh, that's
With
good.
seats and restraints and boosters and all sorts of other things. So for this first pilot year, we're not providing transportation for any pre-K.
So budgetarily, what's the entire cost of the 14K? What are we budgeting right now for the 14, for the PK program?
Do you remember that number off the top of your head?
For the entire program, or
Yeah.
just,
What's our
Well,
skin in the
let's start with the entire program, then we're gonna take the state part of it out to see what we are augmenting with our budget that we previously approved.
budget-wise, again, it depends on the types of students that we lottery, that could drastically change the numbers, but we are with 14 kids, right around $75,000 funded, and an additional $75,000 budgeted.
So all in about 50,
Correct.
plus or minus, depending on the composition of the 14.
Correct. Whether there needs to be an aide, or 2 aides, correct.
So we can, okay, so
So the decision next year for the board would be, if the funding continues and the pay structure exists the same way, do we want to build that into our budget or not?
right, but long before that, come the fall and come next spring, with all the things that are going on, we're gonna have to be judicious about if we already have 75K that's coming out of reserves or wherever we're pulling it from, or 150K, depending. We're gonna be real cognizant of that.
Yep.
Yep, and,
Yeah.
sorry, Mary, go ahead. I didn't
No,
mean to-
you go ahead.
No, please, I didn't mean to.
Well,
I just
that's,
missed you, so.
that's the gist of it. We just need to make sure that we're fully aware of it. We made a conscious decision to move forward for all the right reasons. We know what the landscape looks like today. We sure as heck know what it seems to, the way it seems to be trending. Yes, we have reserves. We've been building reserves for some time. We just have to we have to keep that in mind because it's gonna come right back to the board if we've got to supplement security, if we've got to supplement
Correct.
some of the mental health services.
Correct.
If the cost of goods are going up by 8.5%, and we have to, keep doing just the fundamental, just maintain the overhead. All right, so I'm just stating it from a public perspective. We're doing it for the right reasons, no question about that. But we're going in clear-eyed about what may very well happen, and reserves are not infinite.
And these
Being
are-
aware of the reality of the economy and how it could look 9 months from now.
Clear-eyed.
And I think it's a valuable point to bring up because I think the community is, oh, UBK, this is so great. But next year during budget season, they're, depending on what happens around us, in and outside of this bubble, there will have to be conversations about the true cost of the program and the cost to other programs if we chose to carry it moving forward. And we also have to be able to evaluate this program, and I have no idea, that is not in my wheelhouse, that is not my job description. How do we know at the end of the year, was this awesome?
The benefit.
Was this free babysitting? Was this super beneficial? Like, wow, are these kids like thriving? Is this beneficial for our teachers to be able to get some eyes on at least a small population of our students before they come in as kindergartners?
It's an experiment to track all the way through. The second layer, to your point, Gary, is that if you're going to invest those dollars moving forward, then comes the question of, do we do it using the federal funds at all? Because with the federal funds come all of the handcuffs and obstacles that we have to navigate. Whereas we can't go out and evaluate and identify children that can benefit the most, like the DK program that used to run at Water. That was school district funds, and we made the rules. This, because you're accepting the state funds, had to be wide open lottery. Everybody has an equal chance that applied on time with a complete application. So if we're looking at 34 total families versus identifying kids with different needs through the local preschool associations, through our CPSE program, and really getting to kids that we know could benefit from the additional year versus the lottery.
One is targeted, one isn't.
Correct.
And back to your original comment, Danielle, in terms of determining how successful and effective this particular choice has been, it'll be a tough one.
I don't know that you can do that for a couple of years.
It's a 13-year experiment, right?
Yeah, so another 13 months, another 13 days. So, however, we're going to have some, we're going to definitely add value within the 14 that we get, one or the other, and everyone matters and everyone counts. And as we've been talking about in terms of the programs that we scaffold all the way up through K through 12, our end game is how to improve the programs that we already have in place by capturing guys, at the UPK level. So there are plenty of reasons why this makes sense.
Yeah.
Got to be funded, and we've got to make sure we're clear-eyed about what the possibilities may be, so that when it comes up, we've got to think your hats on, and we're being creative, and the public at large understands and knows that it's very well a possibility. If we crater, if there's a recession, if oil continues to do whatever it's doing, if energy prices keep going up, we got to fund some of the real basic stuff to keep the district running. Those are all things we're going to have to factor in as we sort of steer the ship. So just want to make sure we clear-eyed once again.
And the board has the reserve funds that it does because they were very fiscally responsible for a long time. Those dollars translated into in-person instruction during COVID-19. All of that financial management that happened 4 years turned into a real benefit to the student experience in the school district. So to your point, they exist for a reason, but you need to be very aware of keeping the tanks filled up for the next obstacle, and not just using that like a never-ending credit card that we're paying our bills on as a district.
Which was what I was going to bring up, and I haven't gone to talk about it for a long time, but when Tim and I went to the classes, they were talking about the state has passed a law. It's usually that by a certain year, which Tim, I don't know if you remember, it was 2025, a certain percentage of our buses have to be electric. And like 2035, all of them have to be electric. So I'm sure Tom at some point will learn more about that. We can talk about that in the future, but that is something that's come.
Yeah, we've talked about that a little bit
Okay.
in ABF. A lot of it comes down to the fact that there's no reliable long-term battery life yet. There's a lot of infrastructure needs that are going to be, there's a lot of these things that come out as kind of political sound bites without any of the necessary funding to support any substantive change. So we're sort of in the holding pattern to see what that's going to look like in the future. But, if the price of gas goes north of $5 a gallon, I think a lot of these conversations are going to happen a lot sooner out of necessity. It's still an enormous infrastructure investment to do it.
And just to close the loop on this, when are you notifying the families, or when is the drawing for UPK?
The lottery will be this week, and we'll notify the successful.
This week, what day is that? Because today's Tuesday,
Friday.
so Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, what day?
Friday.
Because I bet to some of those people over there, they're like, is it
Friday.
today? Is it maybe in like 5 minutes?
By
Do I have to get up at midnight? Like what is the, throw them a bone!
The other thing I'll say too is that we're not going to, out of confidentiality concerns, we will alert people if they're chosen, and we will alert people if they're not chosen, but we will not publish a list of names. So I hope.
But you will at least let the other families know, thanks for your interest.
Correct.
Sorry.
Yep.
Okay.
Now, of those 14 that get drawn, if a family, let's say, has to move out of the district, something, what's the plan then? If the numbers drop down to 13 or 12, do you go back in and pull another?
I'd say
or do
that
we-
depends a lot on timing. If school starts and we're already, well into it, and there's a curriculum that has been rolled out and all of the proper ways of doing it, we probably wouldn't at a certain point. If it happens over the summer, that a name drops out, we'll have a randomized list of names from the first person to the last person so that we can maximize that as much as possible. But if it's mid-year, we
But
would.
if it's
Now,
next
hang on,
year,
hang on, we fly that flag, we are a public school, we accept anybody who lives in this district, so why would we not go back and pull another name out of the hat? Double put
I'm not saying we wouldn't, I'm saying it depends on when that vacancy becomes available. If it were halfway through a school year, I don't know what the benefit would be. That's something we have to really talk about. But we will have the lists, we will have the names in rank order, so we would know the next families that are on that list that would benefit. But I think there's a lot of individual circumstances that could really complicate that question. If we had multiply disabled children that had additional adult helpers in the classroom that were necessitated, we might have very real space concerns. So there's a lot of different things that could alter that math for how many kids we can support. My goal is to keep 14 kids in that class. That is what we're trying to do.
I'm glad to hear that, because I would say there would be a benefit whether it's November or March.
Yep.
The program is paid for 14 kids. If we draw a name and that student has additional needs in March, and we have to cover those additional needs for 2 months. But that, I would argue that same thing would happen in August if we drew that name.
I'm not concerned about drawing a name of a student that has additional supports. I'm concerned with if we have, depending on the needs of the individual students that are in the first drawing, that really may complicate our space needs. So I would ask the public understands that there's a lot of different circumstances that will go into that, knowing that our goal is 14 kids. That's what we've said from the start, that's our goal.
Are we allowing non-resident employees to put their kids' names in the hat?
For the purposes of the lottery, I don't believe we are. But contractually,
I would agree with that, I think.
Contractually,
It's gotta be residents.
our employees do have the right to bring their kids to school here, so that might be a little bit more of a complicated issue too. So we'll see where the lottery lands.
So what does that mean? Does that mean they are in the hat? Like when you say, let's see what the other lands.
I haven't looked at the list yet, no.
Because honestly, I would have an issue with that. I mean, they bring their kids K through 12 at no cost, which is, you know, that's fine. But when it's this minimal amount of kids, I think it should be district residents. That's my opinion.
I would caution the board to consider the fact that there may be contractual implications there that we have to look at.
Okay.
So we have to talk that through with our faculty association.
There's legal implications that would trump a contractual. Because we accepted the federal funding, so.
Well, I mean, I think we're talking about the same thing. We could be legally obligated to do that exact scenario because we allow district employees to bring their kids in.
Some of the arguments, experimental versus a K-12 program, this is certainly something outside of the contract. Is to start with, you know what I'm saying, it's a K-12. Now, this is not a K-12. I'm just gonna take some.
So how about this, since you don't actually
I'm
know,
really hoping that doesn't happen in my lottery.
so I would maybe just request you do this for board members then. Once you go through and screen the names to make sure they meet all the criteria of residency and birthdays and all that jazz, if there is anyone, maybe just let us know yay or nay. And if it worked out that it actually is just residents only, there's no point in discussing an issue that's a non-issue now.
I
But
believe
but
that's
something
right
that we have to
in the
keep
letter.
in mind for the future.
I think that's right in the letter, isn't
I
it?
don't believe that this is a concern.
Okay.
I went through today and there aren't a huge number of
Okay.
applications. in
But
there.
definitely worth, if, as part of that discussion for next year, not a problem that we have to solve today if it's a non-issue.
Yeah.
But come February or whenever,
Yeah.
something that we have to have on our radar, whether it's to have someone examine the contract or add some kind of little asterisk or whatever. So just kind of put it on the back burner.
Yeah.
You can put it on your February to-do list.
To add to what Amanda was saying, I think not sure if it came out differently from my perspective from what she was trying to say, but I think I would agree that if a student moves out of the school district in, say, January, that we should be filling that position. And I'm not negating what you're saying in terms of the needs and the space and whatnot, but if we're getting federal money for 14 kids, then we should have 14 kids in that class. So we should be filling up another name, even if it's only for a half a year. Either that or how does that budget lead? What do we do with the federal money at that point in time? Does that become a
Is it prorated? Is it,
It'd be by FTE, yeah, you probably have to do an amendment of some type, to say for these many days you had X amount, and you wouldn't get the full 5,400, you get partial for one, and partial for the
As if it
other.
was any other grade, we would accommodate whoever moved into our school district.
Right.
So I think that's kind of maybe what Amanda was trying to say is that.
No, yeah.
I mean, this is not the first time they're doing this program. UPK, this is absolutely not the first time in the entire country it's being done. West Virginia is doing it, boom, 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 we have a whole lot of precedent. So I think the takeaway here is that should that scenario arise, let's make sure we do the appropriate due diligence, which you guys would have done anyway. And let's see let's see what the appropriate course of action is. It's a pilot. It's also not unique to us. So I guarantee you, dollars to donuts, someone out there has had this
Has the same
situation,
problem.
and there is precedent.
Yeah. We're partnered with a number of districts that are rolling this out at the same time. We're constantly floating scenarios back and forth.
So it's a great discussion because it brings it to the fore. Hey, this is something that we're concerned about so that it just doesn't happen and then we're giving a historical account that this person applied, but this was the situation and we didn't let them in. So at least you're getting ahead of it to take all things into consideration.
Any other questions for Eric?
I just wanted to double back real quick on the timeline for the strategic plan.
Yes.
So administration met today? Is that what
We
you
met
said?
today with our last meeting with Kevin McGowan,
Okay.
and we're finalizing what our goals will be that will be released to the board over the summer.
And now,
Before September, you will have all of our goals.
so you had mentioned that it'll be also sent out to the public, correct me if I'm wrong, the board needs to
I think the board can express support for it, but it's not necessarily something that needs to be formally adopted. Ideally, it would be.
Ideally, it would be, because then we can be held accountable, and it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't see why we would have such timeline that the board would formally adopt. So I'm just thinking
Yeah.
timeline-wise, the public that wouldn't be sent out until after our August meeting.
Correct. It'd be
And that would be.
through the board first, and then,
Correct.
And was that one of the programs that you listed off in the beginning?
Different committee,
Oh,
the strategic planning committee is different than the strategic.
yeah, that's it.
And we can get you a description of each committee and kind of what they can do, so you can figure out what might be your
Yeah.
area. In terms of the strategic plan and the goals, that's awesome that there's a list of goals. But does that include the second column that says who's responsible for those goals?
And the third column that says when.
Yeah, okay. I mean, because that's really,
Yeah.
goals are lovely, but they really
That was part
are
of it.
irrelevant if no one is actually doing them.
That was part of
I have
our
a goal to
work
run a
today.
marathon someday, but I don't even run a mile, so it's kind of like a wasted goal.
So the leadership team met to synthesize a lot of the work that the community group put forth in the last meeting, and really sort of categorize and make linear what fits under what umbrella. And now we're meeting to talk about, okay, what are the actual measurable things that we're gonna do? What are we gonna do? Who's gonna do it? When are they gonna do it? And that is what we submitted and released publicly and everything else.
And then can the community and the board expect quarterly or semi-annual board updates for, this is where we are with the strategic plan, these are some of the things that we've done and we're working on,
Yeah.
items, DEF, whatever?
Today, Kevin recommended quarterly that we meet with the board, and present board meetings. So there's the three, help me out, the three overarching targets that have rolled out of this were excellence in human capital, opportunities and wellness for all, and then community engagement. So those are big umbrellas with a lot sort of hanging beneath each. But the goal is to get
Just
smart goals to roll out of this.
question to the board, Danielle kind of threw it out there. Are we in agreement that should be formally adopted, not just express interest in?
Formally adopt the strategic plan.
Agreed.
Agreed.
And I think especially because the metrics is that we gotta make sure we have alignment.
Yeah.
So we gotta make sure that we do have a board, and we must have alignment. This is part of the conversation that we had when we started down this path last November-ish,
Yeah.
right? So it's culminating, a lot of good time and effort.
It has to be from the board down.
So
we're
the
all speaking the
sequence.
same language, rowing the same direction.
Right, so the sequence, I think, to both Amanda and Danielle's point is kind of critical. So that we have by and ask questions and we press on.
And then the idea too is that it's not done, it's a living document.
Correct.
Some of these things that we're talking about are not immediate timelines. They're, some of the goals are form a committee to address this issue, and then that committee's work will continue. Some of them are real concrete, easy, you did it or you didn't by September, October, things like that.
Can I ask a question? Originally, the committee that met was going to go through all three steps, was that correct? But time-wise, that changed because of, got lengthy or whatever?
No.
So I had talked about an initial provider, but going way back to the beginning. Francine Grinnell and I had interviewed a number of different providers, and there was one group that we were leaning towards until Kevin McGowan and his group became aware to us. It was also in the neighborhood of, I don't know how much less expensive. It was coasterable through BOCES, and it gave us a shorter runway and a more manageable time frame. So we had discussed initially a different process and then abandoned that for Kevin McGowan and his group.
Okay, so the plan was this group met once and then administration was going to take it?
So there was the first meeting with the Board of Ed, the entire Board of Ed, and the entire administrative team. Then there was the second meeting that was the larger community group. And then the third and final meeting is just the administrative leadership team. And that's what happened today.
Okay, that was, everybody knew that.
They were the same
That's
meetings,
right.
one was just canceled, the other was just pushed off. So they're the same meetings, they just got pushed out.
Okay.
And it was because of that snow day. You're right, yeah.
Amazing.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Yes,
That May snow day got us, you know. And it's a sticky situation too, because typically, if we have a snow day, school is canceled, everything for that day is canceled. The second you start making exceptions for a board meeting or a strategic plan meeting or a basketball game, it's a bad precedent to set.
Anything further for Eric before we move on to Connor? Oh, Mr. Brown, you're up.
Thanks, Prez. Very quick for me. One thing I just wanted to bring to the board's attention, I was reached out to by someone from the class of 67. Usually just inquiring about possibly making a donation to the district. Usually donations are in the form of some monetary value. You'll just see a check come through like you'll see on the agenda today. But this was more of a tangible asset they wanted to donate. They wanted to donate picnic tables to the district to sit around concession kind of area. So definitely a generous donation, but none of the purchases have happened yet. So I did not want to have her proceed with that before bringing it to the board and having a decline of a donation if the work was done and money was spent. So I just wanted to get everybody's appetite for a donation from the class of 67 for picnic tables. They'll be basic picnic tables and probably just have some
Placards.
plaque of something on the picnic table just to honor them. So I just want to, if any conversation is
What are they
good.
made out of?
Yeah.
Wood, yeah.
So who's gonna maintain them every year?
So that would be on our staff moving them or,
How many are we talking?
I do not know the amount of food. I would say between 2 and 4. But before wood is out of the roof, so it's before any purchases were made, I just wanted to float.
Are they stuck on the wood?
No, they'll be movable.
No, I mean, are they
Different product.
Van on hammock wood?
It's like a metal
Yeah.
product, for example.
I didn't know the specifics, but it's basically just wooden picnic tables.
So I don't know that, I mean, from board level and being so granular in terms of a donation, I mean, the bigger question is what's our policy when it comes to accepting donations?
The board.
The board has to approve.
Agreed,
Accept donations.
agreed, but what's the criteria that the board uses to accept or decline? It's really, you know, it's tables
Yeah.
versus chairs, it's a value of $150,000, sorry.
Oh.
Yeah, $150.
That's a habit.
That's
A
fancy.
hell of a picnic table, but you understand my point, right?
Right.
When these decisions, when these things come up, the question is what's the criteria the board needs to use to say yea or nay? Is it a value? It's a question to you.
Right, do we often have individuals wanting to donate,
Not tangible.
tangible items?
Tangible.
I mean, money is, that's an easier discussion because there's no maintenance involved.
Very rarely, we had a TV that was donated just a few board meetings ago, that was already purchased and all that, so before they proceed with this, I thought it was in the best interest to ask before
So-
they move forward, and they said no.
Agreed.
In our policy committee this previous year, we had done some research on the acceptance of donations, and there is no monetary limit, it's, frame in there for what we can or cannot accept, but we kind of recognized in the committee that is then sometimes a capital improvement or items that have to then be kept up by the district, but there is no policy on, if it's over 500 or.
We talked about establishing, and we haven't got as far as we would have liked to, but some kind of threshold and criteria, like you talked about. Some things, let's just say the TV, you get the TV, you use it till it doesn't work, and when it doesn't work, thank you, TVs last 3 or 4 years. But something that requires maintenance, like a picnic table, if the kid gets a splinter on his butt, probably shouldn't say that, but you know what I mean? Like that, then you have a different problem. Like those have to be maintained,
Right.
or they will become more of a hazard. But you don't want to sound like you're ungrateful for someone that's willing to donate to the district. So we did talk about this, Gary, and what is that criteria? that says this is something that we can accept, and also having a policy that says if you make a donation to the district, you understand that you are donating as now the property of the school, and Mrs. Smith, you donated these picnic tables, for example, but you can't come borrow them for your family's barbecue because now they are school property. And so we should go back and figure out some guidelines on
There
that.
was also a discussion years ago too about, like, we got a substantial amount, and then there was a naming issue of, you know, things being named in memoriam after people, or how much money they gave, so.
And it's my family,
Yeah.
this is your family, so my kids
Exactly.
get preferential
Schools
treatment.
have problems like this,
Yes.
like holes in.
Well, and that
distinction,
becomes an
or-
equity issue because
It is.
my donation might be a very big contribution for my
Yeah.
family
Right.
personally,
But it's
Right.
peanuts
but
to
it
somebody
does
else.
not seem
Right.
to another family.
Personally, I don't
Right,
like the.
I'm gonna, right,
Yeah.
so, and this is why, and Connor, you know, it's a very simple ask, right? I mean, you know, someone wants to donate something and do the right thing, and it's a very straightforward, innocent, well-intended thing. From a district, from a board perspective, we really should put some parameters in there so that, you know, we don't accept some and decline others and go through a whole mess of stuff. Now, one way that it's handled as well is if you're routed through some of the organizations that we already work with, right? I mean, class of 61, 69? 51. Well, no, that's an existing, 51 is existing, but the current donors, they're 67, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, an alternative is to route it through one of the organizations that we already have connections with. But as from a board perspective, from a policy requirement, from a how do we consistently and fairly treat with the, you know, all these things, that's something that is a board level type question. That's a board level type issue that we need to work on.
The things that appear on campus matter. You know, there's a lot of, in school districts everywhere, gifts in memoriam. And before you know it, your campus is sort of a monument to, you know, the deceased former
Right.
residents.
And who's
Yeah.
here,
That's it.
yeah, which is
And
not-
that becomes, there's equity issues there, there's a lot to consider. Yeah.
Right, so support, you know, I apologize, but I'm happy you
No,
brought it up.
excellent point. So,
Because we
Why-
need
Bring it
to.
up.
yeah. So as it relates to these specific picnic tables, should we just request a pause on that till we clearly outline what our policy is and our parameters on that are before this person goes and purchases a bunch of picnic tables?
I think so, I think it could.
I mean, right, but it's not about picnic tables.
I know.
We don't want someone tomorrow to say, well, I'm gonna donate
Donation
Some-
policy.
Yeah.
and run next year's, and then, you know, like, well, why would you take this and not that?
Yeah.
So,
So what's my direction? Wait until you
I have
get
no
the
idea.
policy committee?
Well, today, I mean, I see it as a maintenance issue, because once we have those, somebody's gonna have to stain them or repaint them every winter. They have to be stored, somebody's gonna have to do all that stuff, so it becomes a maintenance, long-term issue until their life expectancy is used up. So who determines that? If they're composite wood or metal, that's a little bit different, but if they say a wood picnic table, there's other stuff that goes along with it.
Totally agree.
the other thing, there's a chain of command issue with equipment coming to the school that is purchased by someone individually, not through one of your school catalog purchasing groups that we don't know who the manufacturer, you know, there's a safety liability issue, but maybe one of the things when we do it as a policy committee, we can talk about is, if you would like a donation for a specific, make a donation towards a specific thing, you have to donate to the school, but we will do the purchasing so that it comes from our vendor that we know we will get the recall notice, we know it meets certain criteria that is required for school for safety and splinter status, whatever.
Yeah.
So
So
maybe,
I also think if you're going to be able to put a placard on it, it should be, say, from the class of 1967 and not from the,
Coleman. So can we just get back, can she wait a month, is that okay? And we can try to get a policy together and try to get a.
Don't promise a month,
Month,
you have to
two.
form
Two.
committee,
I know.
there's the first
Two.
reading.
That's a month, it's got, we've got to read it twice.
Summertime.
Yes.
You see here, celebrate how it changes when Danielle's one set, she's hammering you on, when is this gonna be? Yeah.
Oh, hey,
we need to form this policy and it's going to be
Yeah.
a bit of time.
Like,
before
thank you
that.
so
Maybe
much.
we can have our conversation and see if we can offer some other alternatives and things.
So just so for the public's clarification, there is a policy out there on donations, it's just very vague, so.
Yeah, right.
Just so
Yeah, it
you-
doesn't.
So we can work to tighten up. But very much appreciate the generosity and the thought.
Yeah.
We just want to make sure it's sustainable.
I'm glad I asked.
What else you got tonight, Connor?
Something that's less contentious.
Yeah.
That's it, that's it.
Federal funds. So, as we know, we have federal funding, been spending on a lot of initiatives. One of the requirements is, as we have done, have community forums, solicit information, input from community members, teachers, all different stakeholders. So just this summer, I'm going to try out to roll out some different avenues for people to contact us, possibly setting up an email address just for that federal funded stuff, send out a survey, just get everybody's opinions, who wants to make an opinion, it can be anonymous, but to not only check the box for the requirements for the federal funded money, make it easier for community members and stakeholders to give an opinion on ways things are spent. So just a heads up that over the next month and a half, you'll see either a survey or just parent square notification about new email address or ways to give information. So just wanted to give a heads up on that. Then last thing, so ABF committee makeup. So we had a meeting scheduled for June. I was under the weather, so we had to cancel that. So I did plan on having a fund balance overview tonight, but I wanted to review that with ABF first before bringing that. So, like I said, we will have a meeting before the 16th of August. And again, looking for one more to talk numbers with us. But that will happen between now and August 16th, and then on the 16th of August, we'll have an in-depth audit, financial review, fund balance analysis plan, and we're moving them forward. So I just want to give an update there, because there hasn't been an ABF update in a little bit. So that's it. Any questions or concerns?
Thanks, Connor. Okay, moving on to new business. I am going to group items A, B, and C together. Item A is be it resolved, the Board of Education approves an unpaid leave request for Elaine Croucher. Item B, personnel resignation or retirement. Be it resolved, the Board of Education approves the resignation of Brian Seavey, high school math teacher, effective June 30th. And item C, be it resolved, the Board of Education hereby appoints Joe Norris as a substitute teacher and substitute teacher assistant, effective 7/6/22 to 6/30/23. Can I get a motion on those three items?
So moved.
Amanda, then Carrie. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Those three pass. Congratulations to Mr. Seavey, who is taking a principal position.
Sherburne Grove Hill School District, very lucky to have
So
him.
they
Wish
are-
him the best.
Sorry to see him go, but also happy for him at the same time.
Yeah, he'll be great.
Yep. Okay. Item D, we're gonna separate these out. There's a whole bunch, so bear with me on this. This is probationary, provisional, and permanent appointments. The first one is the Board of Education. Be it resolved, the Board of Education hereby appoints Mike Caraccio to a probationary appointment in the tenure area of high school principal effective July 6th. Can I get a motion on that?
So moved.
Tanya and Carrie, 1 and 2. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
6-1 on that, Rebecca? Okay, the second one on this list, be it resolved.
Motion passes.
Oh, motion passes, sorry. Be it resolved, the Board of Education hereby appoints Mike Ollie to a probationary appointment in the area of middle school principal. All those in favor? Oh, can I get a motion on that? Sorry, first day on the job.
Tanya, can I get a second? Second by Amanda. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes.
Congratulations.
Congratulations to Mike and Mike's.
Thank you.
Okay, the next is a whole long list. I will read them together. And just so you guys know, at home or listening, we get all this with all the words in between public and private stuff. We just consolidate what is publicly, public information that we can say out loud. Okay. The board resolves the appointment of, or hereby appoints Robert Matson for elementary education, Michaela Cool, elementary education, Pam Anastasio for reading, Kelly Sears, elementary education, and Larry Helmer, custodial worker 2, Rebecca Sweet, custodial worker 1. These are all probationary appointments in tenure areas. Make sure I got them all. Can I get a motion for those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 appointments?
So, Amanda 1.
Amanda and Tim?
1 and 2. Any questions on those? I have a question. Speak of questions. 2 of these are for additional staff at Waterman. Is that what?
So we had retirements, resignations, and position moves. So yes,
Okay.
there's 2 additional.
Okay, great. And 2 of these are the custodial workers that we had talked about during budget season that we wanted to add to custodial staff?
Correct.
Somewhat. One is a promotion from a custodial worker 1 to a custodial
Okay.
worker 2, and 1 is an additional custodial worker 1, so we are staff 1 out of the 4 that were budgeted.
Okay, great. Awesome.
Just like courtesy, we start with 1 out of the 4, so we're actively going out for the other 3.
Yeah,
Correct.
that's actively on our website, and we will send widen our search for sure. Yeah.
Any other questions on these appointments? Okay, can I, all those in favor of these appointments?
So moved.
Aye.
We did this.
Oh, we did, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Any opposed? Okay, congratulations on all those folks on all their new positions. Okay, items E, F, G, H, and I will group together, but I'll let you know what they are. Item E, be it resolved, the Board of Education appoints the attached mentors, and we've got some mentors, those are for new hires, we
Correct.
put mentors. Yep. The Skinny Atlas Teachers Contract MOA, be it resolved, the Board of Education approves the attached MOA for the Skinny Atlas Teachers Association. Be it resolved, this is item G, be it resolved, the board approves confidential managerial terms and conditions agreement for the 22-23 school year and the funding necessary to implement an agreement. Be it resolved, the Board of Education approves increases in job rates for the tax collector and deputy tax collector for the school year 22-23, effective July 1st. Item H, Cayuga Onondaga BOCES final contract for services. Be it resolved, the Board of Education approves the Cayuga Onondaga BOCES final AS7 contract for services during the 2021 school year per the attached agreement. And the last item in that would be I, approval of SEF grants. Be it resolved, the Board of Education approves the FES grants that are attached in our board packet, which is for elementary VEX robotics, little library huts, and it's just those 2 on there. Can I get a motion to group E through I together?
So moved.
Carrie, can I get a second? I'll second that. Any questions on those items?
Yeah, Danielle, on letter E, the school year is 21, 22,
That was what we last month.
22, 23.
Yeah, especially 22.
And then also for,
Oh. 22, 23, sorry, I was just reading. Okay,
Yeah, it was just a typo.
okay,
Okay.
and then also for.
is the Cayuga BOCES a typo or is it?
If you the most is one of the typos.
It is, so that's 22, 23 as well? I didn't know if it was a pass.
So
Connor's the mentors though, because
the mentors were not adopted, but were for the past school year.
right, okay.
So that is the correct.
Okay, so
Right.
21, 22 on the mentors, 22, 23 on
That is correct.
the BOCES thing.
Correct.
Any other questions or discussion on these? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, those motions on all those items pass. Thanks to SEF for continuing to support us in the ways that they do, always appreciated. Okay, J, K, and L, we will group together. Item J is be it resolved, the Board of Education approves the Rev Theater Company donation for $2,500. Item K is be it resolved, the Board of Education approves the Grambling family donation to the Waterman Library. And item L is be it resolved, the Board of Education approves the middle school PTC donation for the Speak Well summer camp. Can I get a motion on those three? Dan and Amanda. Any questions on those? I will just chime in on this one. The Speak Well summer camp is taking place July 15th and 16th. There's 2 summer camps. They work, one is with a theater focus, and the girl that is the presenter was in Homeland and some other TV show that is escaping me.
13 Reasons Why.
13 Reasons Why, which I have not seen, but she was in that. And the other program is a basketball program with a gentleman by the name of John Wallace, who played with SU, and there will be a bunch of other former SU players coming, and it's both programs run in a similar format in that they work on that skill, whether it's the theater or the basketball, but incorporate a lot of social emotional stuff for kids and confidence building activities. And they are targeted for kids going into 6th grade through 8th grade. It's a 2-day, 9 to 5 program. And the PTC is making a donation to fund some of that. So there is still space in both of those, I believe. So if you know any middle schoolers that would like to sign up or have interest area in those, boys and girls, there's room. Anyway, sorry for my little sales pitch on the side, but they look like they're pretty awesome things. Can we take a vote on this one? All those in favor of those 3 actions together, J, K, and L, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, those all pass as well. M, N, and O, we are going to group together. Item M, be it resolved that the Board of Education approves Auburn and Large City School District's contract for health services for the 21-22 school year. Is that correct, or is that a typo?
That's correct.
It's for the past school year.
They bill us until they know the student was there for the full year, rather than so if they drop
Okay.
out, they do a half year or whatever.
Okay. Item N, be it resolved the Board of Education approves the East Syracuse Manoa contract for health services for the 2021 school year. And item O, be it resolved the Board of Education approves the disposal of items on the attached list, which is shredding requests for books, cafeteria disposal items, and textbook disposal. Can I get a motion on those 3 items?
So moved.
Carrie and Tanya, any discussion? I have a discussion question / statement. Eric, maybe for the record, you could just explain, or Connor, that what the health services thing is and why we're paying another school district for health services.
Yep, so our resident students attend other districts, so they can technically bill for the health services card based on the enrollment data and how much they charge for those services, or pay for those services.
And this is common practice in all school districts.
Correct,
This.
yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. All those in favor of improving M, N, and O, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are on to P, which is our CP, CSE, CPSE, and 504 reports. Be it resolved, the Board of Education arranges the placement of students with disabilities as recommended by the CPSE, CSE, 504 committees. Can I get a motion? Dan, second by Amanda. Any comments, questions, discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item P passes. We are now on to closing items for process review. Our next board meeting is set for August 16th, so agenda setting would be on Tuesday, August 9th, 8 p.m. or 4 p.m.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Nobody's gonna join me at,
Okay.
I can do either.
I can do 4 p.m.
I can do either.
I could do either.
Dan, you want to do one? Summertime, we gotta take you while we can.
Yeah, that's my one option. Yeah, I can do 4 p.m.
Okay, sure. Is there a third?
That's,
So Carrie or Tanya
Okay,
said,
okay.
so Carrie or Tanya said yes,
Tuesday the 9th at 4. You guys can duke it out, see which one of you wants to come and decide when it gets closer. Just gonna leave.
Yeah, I have to check my calendar, which I have to be around my place.
Okay, so 4 PM, and then Rebecca, can you send out a calendar invite for that?
I will.
Thank
So are we, so you and Dan? for
You and
sure.
Dan, and then carry them into one of them, so we'll see what works better for those guys. Okay, great. Anything else for process review that any board members need to sort out or discuss?
I have one thing I'd like to put before the board. The idea, I know a lot of Board of Educations that do a president's report, and what your thoughts are on bringing that into our board meetings. I know sometimes we as the board are working on things or talking about things that kind of would lie outside of what Eric is working on. For example, what you brought to us, the book study this past year that multiple board members did, that would be an opportunity for the board president to kind of speak to what we are working on separate from Eric. So I just want to throw that out there. Maybe adding that to the agenda.
I think it's a great idea. I think it gives us an opportunity to just keep people informed about what we are doing at a high level, just so they maybe have a little understanding of what goes on, like the book study and things like that, Are you guys okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Go.
Okay. Fight up.
No, I mean, that's a great point. I mean, some of the financial stuff, some of the training that's mandatory that we do, that the general public is aware of, and make sure we're adequately equipped to make the appropriate decisions, all that sort of stuff we can incorporate periodically. So yeah, I think that's an excellent idea.
More opportunities to share videos, it's great.
Yeah.
Great. So Rebecca, if you could.
Did you just let me know to add?
No, I just, it was a good idea.
Oh, sorry.
After all of that?
Yeah, it's cool.
Anything else?
Yes, have you been to any law conferences this summer?
No.
Yeah, school boards law conferences?
I want to do one up in Rochester.
You know, I'm not around for Rochester, or whether it's edible law, so I'm not.
I'll find out when the Bonchek and King ones are, and the NISBA ones, and I'll share them with the board.
Okay.
They tend to slow down over the summer, because board members are hard targets over the summer. But once the school year starts, there's some really good ones. A few of us went to a law conference that was put on by Farrar Fiorenza this year that was outstanding.
Isn't it the one that they do for administrators and boards, this is the typical one? They used to be in Syracuse all the time.
Yeah,
Now
they always meet the double tree, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'll find out what those are.
all right.
Thank you. Any other items before we close tonight? We have a meeting on August 3rd. Ian?
No.
That's gone. Okay, that's what I was just advising showing.
The next meeting is August 16th.
Okay. August 16th for our regularly scheduled monthly meeting. Okay, great. And then another one a few weeks later, right at the start of school. So those two are close together. Yep. Okay, just checking. Okay, we are at the second opportunity for public comment. It is the same disclosure that I read at the beginning of the meeting. I will not use my speed reading to reread it to you, but if anybody would like to make an additional public comment, now is your opportunity. Just make sure you say your name for the record. Any takers? Okay. Well, thank you for coming. If I could get a motion to adjourn the meeting, we'll call it a night.
So moved.
Amanda. Second by Tanya. Any other questions on that, or can I get a vote in favor of closing the meeting? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. See you all in August.
Thank you for coming, folks.
8:30, now it's done.